Today, I actually want to walk you through a model I use quite a bit when coaching people called the 3C's model. It stands for comfort, conflict, and commitment. Now, it's three phases that I see almost everyone in at some stage on their journey, truly. And what I'm trying to get across through the 3C's model, it's actually just framework to help people think a little differently about their goals. I want to bring awareness to their choices. I want to give someone really clear structure for what the path ahead could potentially be and what's involved in that path and the trade-offs that are involved. It's really, it's not just about how much effort you put into your workouts, like I think, which is where a lot of people think they're going to get most of their results from. But there's so many more decisions that are made every day that will dictate where your health and wellness is at. So ultimately, what I want people to get out of the 3C's is a simple framework to be able to make choices on where they're heading, on whatever their goal or health goal may be. And yeah, like get an understanding of the framework that we hear this a lot as coaches, especially in our coach catch-ups or our P&As as we call them, where people may or may not tell us the truth, which is totally understandable. But I think they think hiding the truth from their coach is better for the coach. But truly, as much as I love everybody that I train, their decisions don't impact me and my actual health goals. They actually only have impact my clients. And I think people forget about that sometimes. So today we want to use the 3C's model to kind of pry open a bit of awareness around what we're thinking, how we go about things, so that we can get crystal clear on whatever the path is that is best suited for us going forward. And we'll talk about a couple of different paths. So there's really one thing I will say is there's absolutely a time and a place for each one of the zones we're about to talk about: comfort, conflict, and commitment. It's not that you have to stick or stay in any one of those zones. That's not what the actual zoning is about. It's just about getting some awareness of, am I in a zone? And if I am, is it the zone I actually want to be in? And if the answer is yes, then great. We'll base that on a couple of metrics. And if the answer is no, then we can actually have a chat about what it would take to either move into subsequent zones from there. So let's talk about zone number one, the comfort zone. We've all heard the comfort zone. What happens in this zone? Well, not a lot, if I'm being completely honest with you, or very little. Most people, unknowingly, will fall into this category at some stage. It's a zone where you feel safe. Everything feels really familiar. And it doesn't have a lot of immediate change. But it potentially does come at sacrificing your long-term health and overall vitality. In this zone, you don't have to make any big changes. But we all know the quote, nothing actually grows in your comfort zone. And the reason I want to talk about these zones so much is because I think people genuinely we know that come in and chat with us, they clearly want to make a change. Otherwise they wouldn't come to us as a coaching facility. So that makes perfect sense. It's just obviously really difficult to make that change. One of them is because they're stuck in the comfort zone where truly they think what they want as a goal and what they think is required for that goal just actually aren't aligned just yet, which makes it really difficult for people to get on their journey. I want to talk about some real benefits of the comfort zone. Really good for a couple of things that I like to call deep health, which is kind of any metric that we're talking about. A lot of programs will be, physical well-being and how you look and your nutrition, and they are all really good components. But you've also got your mental health. You've also got your social health. You've also got your community health and how fulfilled you feel. And different zones will just have different levels that they meet different layers of deep health, which is why each zone is actually always really important. We just need to know which deep health parameters we're trying to meet at any one time. But also not just being okay with, if they are needed, are they actually still getting us to the result that we're looking for? Therein lies a lot of the conundrums that we hear when we're coaching people. The frustration of this zone is staying comfortable feels really easy. But over time, people often get frustrated as their health deteriorates. They'll either, what do we commonly see? Lower energy, that people will gain weight, they'll be stiff, sore, or injured, or they're suffering from some form of chronic illness. That doesn't sound really pleasant, if I'm being honest with you. I want you to, like, the analogy I like to think of is in the comfort zone. If you stay in there for too long, is, picture this. There's some lukewarm water and it starts to heat slowly. And if there's a frog in there, it doesn't notice at the start that they're actually in danger. It stays there. It feels comfortable. The water feels nice. It feels warm until it's too late. And staying in the comfort zone too long with your health is a lot like that. Your health doesn't decline drastically overnight, but slowly, over time, day after day, week after week, month after month, which turns into years after years, it worsens until it's too late. And you often wonder, and we hear this a lot when we meet people for the first time, I don't know how I got here. It's often staying in the comfort zone for too long. So there's some real wins in the comfort zone, but the reality check is we just need to know the trade-offs that we are having every time we stay in it and for how long we stay in it. So when you choose to avoid making changes, this is what's at stake when we actually stay in that zone. Zone number 2. Probably the toughest zone. It's the conflict zone. This is where most people live, if I'm being completely honest with you, that are on some form of health and wellness journey. They'll often start in the comfort zone. Something will ignite a change to some capacity, and then they'll come in at the conflict zone, or they'll come in through the comfort zone into the conflict zone after some coaching. This is where people put in a bit of effort, clearly. They might train once or twice a week. They'll follow a bit of a diet, but we'll often hear the same things. I just can't because time, work, social outings, I can't give up dessert, drinking alcohol is just a positive for these reasons, whatever it may be. It's almost half in, half out, and you get caught between an internal battle between effort and results in this zone. The thing is, people in this zone still feel like they're 100% committed, which is half the battle for them. Whether these roadblocks that people have or the walls that they've got are actually real, whether they're perceived or whether you think they're excuses, it's almost irrelevant because in their eyes, they are real. And that's all that actually matters when you're actually in the conflict zone. So it's actually trying to get somebody to think a bit laterally on what's actually happening. That'll make all the difference to them actually being able to get a lifestyle change happening. Let's actually think of some positives though, because there's real positives in each zone. You're doing something. Most underrated win in everybody's week. If you're going to the gym, especially if you're going to the gym 3 or more times a week, it puts you in the top 10% of people, which is unbelievable. If you have any thought process around what goes into your mouth in terms of nutrition, you're doing an amazing job. So there are plenty of wins to be had in this zone. You may still enjoy some social things like eating dessert or drinking alcohol or having pizza. Cool. That'll hit some deep health metrics, whether it's emotional, mental, social, working with your community. But there are some frustrations in this zone. Clients often get stuck here, and that's kind of what we see a lot. They feel at some stage they're riding a roller coaster where they may do well on some weeks, not as well on other weeks. And they get frustrated by the lack of progress. And over time, each well of motivation gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and lack of motivation. So you're putting in some effort, and people think it's 100% effort, but it's inconsistent, and the results can be minimal due to the half in, half out mentality. I want you to think of a leaky bucket. So imagine you're holding a bucket, and that's your health and fitness journey. You feel like you've done all the work. You fill it up with all sorts of good habits, workouts, meal planning, self-care, recovery, saunas, whatever your bucket looks like. You think you've got everything you need. What you don't realize is that there's small holes in the bottom of this bucket that you're not aware of. That's your skipped workouts. That is a poor night's sleep. That's the stress that you're not managing or getting on top of. Slowly, the water leaks out of this bucket It's still in your hands and you feel like it should be full and you're not sure why. So you keep adding water. You keep thinking you're giving 100%, but no matter how much you pour in, the leaks just keep draining your progress. And where are these leaks coming from? Does it sound familiar? Because it happens every week in almost every studio that's around. Because you're not aware of the leaks, because you don't notice them, you get frustrated with not getting the results that you expect. The problem isn't effort, because most people have a tremendous amount of effort. It's the holes in their approach and the quiet undoing of everything that they do with some of the habits that they don't do. So if you took time to actually fix the leaks, tighten the bucket up, and actually put a cover over the holes, that looks like being consistent, addressing the gaps in your habits, and your bucket will stay full, and your progress would flow. But until people actually come to terms with what the holes in their bucket are, they'll be in a cycle of frustration. And no matter how hard you try, the results will always seem to slip through that bucket, and the cycle continues. So what do we want to do? We want to get more awareness and we want to take more responsibility, which is a tough convo to have with people, if I'm being completely honest with you, especially if they don't know that things that they're doing are holding them back. But the truth is, the results match the effort. And if I could have one candid piece with each person a month, it would be this simple. Did you get the results you were after in the last phase, however long that phase was? If the answer is no, it's irrelevant what actually happened in that phase. It didn't work. Which is a super black and white view on it, but it just gives people an ease of actually looking at it zoomed out rather than getting into all the detail all the time. Because we're all the same, and I've done it plenty in the past, where I'll find every reason as to why I still gave my best effort, and I can't possibly find a reason as to why it didn't work. But in that line of thinking, what I can't do is look for solutions to actually get the result that I'm after. And it's complicated, and this is where coaching significantly helps, or having somebody actually giving you really valuable information with a person that you respect and value while in health is so important, because you need to understand if you're not getting the result, the quote that rings out to me is, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. Again, the only one who loses in this equation is you if you're not getting the results. It's not the facility you're at. It's not the coach that you're working with, even though they will care deeply about you. It's you. It's your result, whatever that result may be. And this is why, as a coach, I want such open and honest communication with the people that I'm working with, because it's the only true way we can delve into the complexities that is health and the journey that somebody's on, and actually integrate the whole thing so that we can actually find solutions and strategies to get on top of things that are holding people back. If only it were as easy as, eat the right foods, move a little bit more, take better care of yourself. Unfortunately, for most, it's a much more difficult prospect than that. This leads us to zone number 3, the commitment zone. The zone I really want to get everybody in. So what does this zone actually look like? Well, it looks like fully embracing the journey, accepting the challenges, and actually achieving the transformation that you actually want to. It's the path that leads to real change, long-term change. But transparently, it's also the hardest. I don't want to sugarcoat it. One of the things, especially at the moment for me, I'm about to have 2 kids, and I just realized I don't have easy options anymore. Almost anything I want to do, whether it's business, whether it's study, whether it's travel, whether it's downtime, I just have different versions of hard. That's it. And in accepting that was the road ahead, oddly enough for me, it made things calmer for me, because then I stopped looking for easy wins that just never existed. But it also allowed me to go into solution mode and actually prioritization mode, to be like, is this thing that I think I want actually a thing that I actually want when I measure it up against these other things? If the answer is yes, great, what am I going to do about it, truly? Because I either do the thing, I either don't do the thing, or I kind of sit in the middle and I'm half in, half out. And we've just discussed what the other 2 options look like. So, what's the positives of this zone? Well, when you fully commit, you feel like you're actually in control, and that's empowering. Most people actually feel a bit calmer, believe it or not, even though they know it's going to be hard, even though they know it's going to be challenging. Their expectations and their reality are now in alignment. And when you have alignment like that, it makes you calmer to understand the process that's ahead. And it actually makes you more resilient in the process. I'd almost go as far as saying to people, the results and the health that you actually want in life is in this zone. But it requires time, effort, and responsibility, which for most people is a really tough transformation process because there's nowhere to hide when you're constantly shouldering the responsibility of all of your actions. And that's not to say all the actions are actually your fault. But the reason I like to take 100% responsibility as a coach and on my own health as a client is because it gives me no way out and no excuses. And in that way, I can always come up with solutions on how I can improve. Let's not make no mistake about it. There are negative trade-offs to this section. It's often sacrificing some of the short-term comfort that you would get in the comfort zone. I went for a run this morning. The short-term comfort in me was like, it's pretty warm in bed. Like, I'd much rather be here. And if I'm going to get up, it's to put the kettle on to make a cup of tea or a coffee. The commitment zone me, luckily enough, already had his stuff ready the night before. He got up, he got dressed, and he took his dog for a run. That's the difference in the zones, where I know if I had stayed in the comfort zone this morning, probably would have enjoyed that cup of coffee, but later in the morning, I would have been disappointed that I didn't do the thing that I set out to do. And sure, one day is not going to be a big issue, but if that's me day after day, week after week, month after month, I start to see issues with what I'm actually looking for. So my analogy for the comfort zone, or the commitment zone, sorry, it's like learning to ride a bike. So when you fully commit to learning to ride a bike for the first time, it's wobbly, it's uncomfortable, like there's a reasonable chance you fell off a few times. But the key isn't about being perfect at the beginning. It's just about getting back on the bike every time. Each time you get back, you build up more skills, more balance, more confidence. And eventually, once what was really difficult becomes second nature and you find your rhythm. And we see it every single day with someone's health, when it's exercising, whether it's strength, whether it's fitness, whether it's nutrition. So you'll have stumbles, you'll make mistakes, you'll have days off, you'll have days where you sit in bed and have the cup of tea instead of going for a run or going to the gym. But having full commitment isn't about always following through. It's just taking responsibility for it. And there's a real difference in that. Over time, just like riding a bike, it's the consistency and the dedication that is actually the payoff. No matter how small the effort, it's going to keep you closer to mastering new skills and new habits you need for long-term health. It's almost calming for me to know that I'm going to fall off. Like, you're just not going to get it perfect. Every week of every month for the rest of the year, there's just going to be hiccups. And knowing that and taking responsibility for that actually gives me a sense of calm to knowing that I don't have to have it all figured out and that I'm never going to have a perfect week. And it's not about the perfect week. Because in this zone, what we truly celebrate is progress over perfection. So the two things I kind of think about is like, off the table is easy. Easy no longer exists. Because if there were easy options on this health and wellness journey, people would be in better shape. People would have better health. So you've got different options of hard. When you look at the hard, all you have to think is, progress is more important than perfection ever is. Progress, the best I can give on any given day, is all you can truly ask for. You stack enough of those moments into days, into weeks, into months together, you stack up a pretty good year. And when you have that, you have a different transformation and a different lifestyle that you're living. One thing I will leave you with is those 4 things. Progress over perfection. Keep your own standards for yourself high. It doesn't mean they won't dip, but you need to know what your standards are and what the ceiling on those looks like. You need to do things that keep your momentum up, and often that looks like just checking a box for the day and saying, this is the best I could offer. It's not perfect, but it's the best I have right now. And you'll see that you actually get tremendous results over time. Any questions, gentlemen?
Not question, but I really like that model. It's taking lots of notes here. I think you could apply all of that. That you've talked about the confidence, commitment, and everything within those three stages. You could apply that to your mental health as well. In terms of, having a commitment to looking after your mental health just the way you would with your physical health. That's what I like about it as well, given that I work in mental health. So I'll use that. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And like the actual framework, the 3Cs framework can be used for plenty of things. Like mental health is clearly not my profession and not something that I specialize in, but helping people elicit behavior change is. And half of the time it's just honestly calling people out on the bullshit they keep telling themselves, which isn't often them hiding things from them or the coach. It's just that they're not aware just yet. And like if I give an example, it might be, I can't not drink on the weekends because of A and B reason, or I can't not eat that food, it's a cultural thing, or I just don't have the time because I've got multiple kids, which are all really fair. But at the end of the day, it's either do the thing, don't do the thing, or be somewhere in the middle, because it's only your result that matters at the end of the day. So the question you need to ask yourself is the thing that I'm holding on to so much and the thing that I keep telling myself actually moving me closer or further away from my goals? And if it isn't, is there something that I want to do about it? Or is there a hybrid option that I can actually implement that would help me get to where I need to be? Because at the end of the day, it's not me, it's not you, it's the person who is saying that to themselves who is not getting closer to their goals. And they just need to realize that so that they can make appropriate decisions. Vince, anything to add?
No, I was just going to say, I really like the model too, to be honest. I feel like I've been stuck in the commitment stage for every single aspect of my life since I reckon I was 12. And I think that's turned me into the person I am. I get really frustrated for the people in the comfort zone. Working with or working for people in the comfort zone really annoys me, which I have no control over. So slowly as I get older, learn to let go a bit. But I've never been a comfort zone person, I don't think.
I'll throw some. So I've been in all the zones, and all the zones are actually appropriate, because you might say, I'm going on holiday, I'm going to stay in the comfort zone. That's fine, because you might want to spend more time with your family, eat some delicious food. I don't care if I'm going to put on a kilo and like lose a bit of fitness, because like I just really need to de-stress and enjoy my holiday. And it's like, as long as you're intentional with where the comfort zone fits into your journey and you're okay with the trade-offs, I've got no issue with the comfort zone. It's just most people aren't thinking about the other things that are associated with being in that zone. The same with being in the conflict zone. You might go on holiday and say, I'm going to eat a little bit of fun food, but I'm still going to train every other day, and I might try to get out and do some walks. But you're like, I'm not going to be that fussed about the whole thing. And again, as long as you're okay with those trade-offs of where your fitness will and won't be and where your physique's at, most of the zones are okay. It's just any zone outside of the actual commitment zone spent too long just comes with really long-term trade-offs, either mentally or physically to your body comp or to your long-term motivation. And that's an issue for me. But that's where most people end up spending a lot of their time. I would say one thing about the actual commitment zone as well, which people misconstrue. It's not about being restrictive in that zone. The commitment zone doesn't also mean you got to exercise every day. You're strength training every day of the week, or I'm doing cold showers every day, or I'm now doing intermittent fasting or keto. Like, it's not about super restrictive forms of health. It's that you may want to go, and actually really dial in whatever you're doing, but it may also just be step by step. Like, I just want to eat breakfast for the first week, but it's more just the awareness piece around taking responsibility and reflecting on where you're at, so you can just make the next best appropriate decision in alignment to your goals and understand the trade-offs. And if people took more responsibility, truly, which is really tough and no one actually wants to hear that, but that's half of actually just what we're coaching here, they would get so much further with their health goals. But it's really difficult for people to check their ego and actually know that they're actually a part of their own problem. But I have empathy for those people because I've been there too. Like, I've been 30 kilos heavier. I know how hard it is to change. Like, truly, if it was easy, everybody would do it. But almost every single thing that seems easy that you could read on the internet has layers and layers and layers of complexity on why people can or can't do the change or implement the change. Which is why you need somebody, doesn't have to be a coach, but they work pretty well, that is firm but fair is the way I like to do it. And the firmness is actually being fair, and the firmness is often being kind to people as well. Because patting them on the back all the time and supporting them doesn't always help them get over the hump and have the breakthrough that they need, which is actually getting them to take accountability and responsibility. Beautiful. If you have no more questions, gentlemen, but if we do, fire away. Jeffrey.
Quick question. I've noticed a lot of people kind of around my age, 50 or over, they need, and this is what happened to me, they need a serious health scare to get out of the comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a kind of a good piece of advice or something, you know, about my mate who's been stuck in the comfort zone and depressed for a long, long time? Mm-hmm. What would you say in terms of helping them get out of it before they, you know, have the health scare?
Honestly, I'm pretty...
Across the back.
Most people are kind to their friends, as they should be, but half the time they don't bring up the conversation that they're actually thinking or say the thing that they're actually thinking when they're having those conversations. So if I was to meet this individual, like, I'd just actually ask them important questions, like, are you happy with where you're at now? Does your weight or the status of your health or what does that actually mean to you? What's the net effect that it's having on a day-to-day basis? And how does that make you feel? And what does the next 5 years look like for you? Like, honestly, when I'm talking to somebody and coaching them, extrapolating how much pain they're in works so much better than actually forecasting the benefit that they'll get. Because of all the complications that we've talked about today, the benefit can be hard to associate with. The benefit can seem too far away. It can seem like light at the end of a very far tunnel. But the pain they're feeling now, and somewhere in the journey, they'll start leading into more of the benefit. But at the start, you're often running away from the pain, which I'm totally okay with. Because when I was overweight, and if this is your friend, you're miserable all the time. Like, I was in a state of depression, which I didn't love. I was really struggling with my health, which most people, in their 50s and above are. So I just like to attach it to things that are actually really, truly important to them and have that conversation so that they can actually get a much better awareness of where they're actually at and not sugarcoat it. Not a fun conversation to have. But when I'm having this conversation, I actually think I don't actually want to upset them. That's not the intention. But I also just don't want to tell them life's gravy either, because the next 5 years might actually look really detrimental for them. And when we see people here that are 50 plus, that are 30 or 40 kilos heavier than they'd like to be, that are on diabetic medication or some other chronic illness like a heart disease, I actually really fear for what their next 10 years might look like, whether they'll be alive, let alone whether the quality of their life will even be worth something that they'd like to be able to do. And actually getting somebody to understand that normally is a pretty good way to ignite spark for them. Also with knowing that there'll be a supportive framework that we'll have, and, while we're a business, like, honestly, I don't know too many places that care. A good coach will seriously ride the journey with you and really want to root for your success almost more than anybody in your bloody friendship circle, to be honest with you. So that's kind of the combo I would have with them, which as a friend, they may not even want to hear it from some people, but from a coach, they're kind of expecting some form of exchange like that. And I'm just happy to hit it head on, because the idea is I want to get a deep emotive feel about where someone's at so that they can actually feel that feel, potentially for the first time, so that they can actually think about, do I want to make this change? Because the change is going to be hard, and I'll hit them with that too. But once they understand the actual mechanism as to the point on where they're feeling, they might be actually ready to make that change. It's what happened to me. someone just grabbed my belly one day and shook it and said, "Whoa, what's happened?" And it crushed me. But I've thanked that person since. You could probably go about it in a nicer fashion than that. But I'm glad that they did it, because I don't know if I would have made the change if I didn't get hit so hard emotively from something like that, rather than everyone just kind of supporting me with like, "Oh yeah, you've put on a little bit of weight, but it's not that big a deal." So that was just the spark for me personally. Other people will need more support than that. But yeah, that's think 10 years into the future and think about if you didn't. And the thing we often say when I'm coaching somebody is, if you had another week like this, would it move you further or closer to your goals? And if that person's thing is further, then what do you want to do about it truly, and just have that conversation? Because you only have 3 options: do nothing, stay in the comfort zone, go halfway and get into the conflict zone, or fully take responsibility and jump into the commitment zone.